everybody, it's time for my January wrap-up. I just graduated college, so I've had some free time while I've been looking for a job, and the work that I'm currently doing requires me to do very repetitive tasks at the computer, so I've had a ton of time for audiobooks. I also participated in Bout of Books at the beginning of the month, and I ended up reading 18 books this month alone, so I'm very far on my way to my reading goal for the year. And with that, let's get into what I read. The first book that I read this year was Celt and Pepper. This is a mystery that takes place at Notre Dame. I gave this a 2.5, and thinking back on that, I think that was very generous. The first half was painfully slow, and the second half picked up a lot, but there were so many red herrings in all the wrong ways, and there just weren't enough breadcrumbs dropped to make the reveal make sense. The next book that I read was right at the beginning of Bout of Books, and that was The Girl Who Chased the Moon. This book is by Sarah Addison Allen, and I'm going to do a whole video on her because I ended up reading 4 of her 6 books this month, and I really enjoyed all of them. The Girl Who Chased the Moon was the only one that I read during Bout of Books, but the other ones that I read were Lost Lake, Garden Spells, and The Peach Keeper. The next book that I read during Bout of Books was part of my TBR goals for this year. I really want to read some of the books that I feel like I should have read in high school but just didn't have to. So I listened to A Brave New World and I really didn't enjoy it. I only gave it a 1.5 stars, which was really disappointing. Given the subject matter and my own interests, I thought that I would enjoy this book, and so many people speak so highly of it. I was just very disappointed. I thought the last 5-ish pages were really good, but for the majority of the book, I was just very uninterested in the story. The next 2 books that I listened to for Bout of Books were on my most anticipated reads for this year, and those are The Days of Blood and Starlight and The Dreams of God and Monsters. I thought they were great. I gave them 4.5 stars, but this series overall is definitely a 5-star series for me. If you haven't read it, get on it. I would definitely recommend it on audiobook because the performance is amazing, and I'm also going to be doing a video on those. I'm frustrated that it didn't occur to me to make that video sooner. The next book that I finished was Gone Girl. I gave it a 3.5 stars, but I do think it was very good, and I think a lot of people would really, really enjoy it. And I will have a link to my video on the movie and book here. The next book that I read was A Wrinkle in Time. I feel like I should have had to read this at some point in my life, and I just completely missed it. But we have some friends who are very, very in love with this book, so I thought I should read it. And I just think I'm a little too old for it. I only give it 2 stars. I just didn't like it that much. I don't know if I'm going to finish the series. Probably, but I'm not looking forward to it, so maybe not. The next book was another dud. I really wanted to like this book. It is True Blue by David Balducci. It has 2 female protagonists. They are sisters. One is the chief of police in Washington, D.C., and one is a former cop who was just released from jail. So I personally really enjoy strong female protagonists and strong sibling stories, as well as seeing women in predominantly male-oriented jobs. So I thought that this book would be great, especially because I also love murder mysteries, and that's what this book was. However, I just don't think that David Balducci wrote the women very well in this story, and I don't feel like he got the sibling relationship done very well. And there are just so many things about this book that I didn't enjoy, including the audiobook performance. I had another one of his books on hold, and I took it off because I just really don't like his writing style. It happens. In the murder mystery genre, I also read Private and Private London by James Patterson, and I gave those a 4 and a 3.5 respectively. I thought the characters in Private were more compelling than in Private London, but I thought the stories were really great, and I really enjoyed them. However, I've been a James Patterson fan for many years. I read 1 graphic novel this month, and that was Adventure Time's Marceline and the Scream Queens. It was a little strange to see the television show in graphic novel form, But it was enjoyable. I only gave it 3 out of 5 stars because it was not one of the most compelling graphic novels that I've read. One minor gripe is the way that they drew Bubblegum's eyebrows in some of the frames. It was a big disconnect between the tone of the frame and the look on her face. Another TBR thing that I have this year is to get through some of the books that I've been hauling around for literally 10 years. I have had quite a few books on my bookshelf that I just keep moving, and at this point I'm not really even interested in the story anymore, but I bought them and I've been carrying them around, so I feel like I have to finish them. So this month I read My Undercover Years with the Ku Klux Klan. This is a memoir from a man who was approached by the FBI to go undercover with the KKK after he had been approached multiple times to join the Klan and had declined. I thought this memoir was interesting, but a little slow in parts and a little difficult to read in others. I'm not sure that I trust the narrator. I appreciated that this book was not really sensationalized at all, because I would rather have a slightly boring memoir than something that's incredibly sensationalized and thus not reliable from that front. I do feel like the author really minimized his role in some of the acts of brutality, and I feel like there were some parts of the story that were missing when I read this, but I think that that's somewhat to be expected given the time that this was written and the subject matter. I don't know. If you're into this sort of thing, I would recommend it. I did give it 3 stars. I will say that parts of this book were very difficult to read because he talks pretty explicitly about the violence during the freedom rides and the marches through Alabama. And if you're really, really uncomfortable with that subject matter, I would avoid this book. But at the same time, I think that we need to be aware of our history so that we can move forward as a society with a better understanding. The next book I read was much lighter, and that was The Selection. However, I didn't enjoy the book. I only gave it a 2.5 stars. I'm going to finish the series because I think that the sub-storyline with the rebels was really interesting, but the main Bachelor-esque aspects of it were so obnoxious, I just couldn't get into it. Also, I really don't like one of the main love interests, and I don't know if you were supposed to like him, but I can't stand him, so I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I read Every Day, which was my first David Levithan novel. This story is about an individual who wakes up in a different body every day, but then falls in love with a girl, and that changes everything for this individual. I gave this book a 3.5, and I think it's more because of the subject matter and me not feeling satisfied at the end of the book, but the book was really good and I would definitely recommend it, and I cannot wait to read some more David Levithan. The last book that I'm going to talk about was Night Diver. I was so disappointed by this book, I gave it a 1.5 stars. It was billed as superbly combining atmosphere, action, romance, and suspense. But really, the majority of the book was romance, and then at the end, they tried to shove in the suspense, thriller, mystery part, and the atmosphere never really stuck to begin with. I have read reviews that say that this author is really great, but this book specifically isn't. If you have read this author, let me know. Should I give her another chance, or should I just move on to other things? Because I am really, really curious. So that's everything that I read in January. In February, I am going to do the Book and Time Reading Challenge, and I will have a link to the announcement videos down below, as well as be making a video about that coming up. If you've read any of these books, or you think there are any books that I need to read in the next month, please let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit it with the thumbs up, and if you're new here, please subscribe so you know when I make new videos. And until next time, the non-spoilery section, if you haven't read or seen Gone Girl, is that a man's wife goes missing and everybody thinks he did it.